right. Well, welcome to the session. The purpose of it was to, often we give advice to our students about employment and freelancing, and the information is often very similar. So we thought we'd do a live session that we can record and share with everyone just to help you through these times. Obviously, employment is challenging, but I think there's plenty of opportunities with freelance. And Madalen and I can sort of share some insights with you to help you with your job and business development. So my name is Katya, Ellis, and I am a business mentor with SBMS. I've had a number of my own businesses and have also worked in human resources, so I can kind of understand what employers are looking for. I've mentored many students, and I'm also obviously working with small businesses to, find resources and do things as cost effectively as possible, so I understand what their needs are. And so that gives me a good insight into how you can present your skills to be more employable. And Madalen, introduce yourself.
Yes, so I'm the QBM Trader Connect Program Manager and Business Mentor in Residence, and also I've ran my own businesses and in various areas, but mainly in digital marketing and website graphic design. So I've been a mentor with the SBMS for over 20 years now, and have worked with many businesses across the board, and helping them develop from and transition from employment into freelancing or into their business.
Yes, in many ways they're similar. So on the agenda today, we're discussing employment versus freelancing, and we'll look at tips on jobs applications and discuss what employers are looking for, tips on freelancing and starting your own business and how to do it right from the start, and obviously just any pitfalls related to those to avoid and make all options work for you. So my stance on employment is, if you're graduating, if you can get a job, I personally think that early on in your career, it really is best to work in a professional environment to get an understanding of how things work. I personally started my own business pretty much straight out of uni, and the amount of mistakes I learned, it gave me freedom and it taught me to be entrepreneurial, but I made a lot of mistakes that I wouldn't have made had I learned, the ropes from someone else previously. So obviously I'm a mentor to encourage people to start their own businesses, but if you're graduating and then you can get a job, or at least part-time job, I think it will, put a stronger foundation for you to build your own business later on that's, less riddled with complexity and mistakes.
I agree with that. Yeah. Totally.
However, having said that, I see that there's so much opportunity for freelancing, abundant opportunities to work for small business. And I'm often finding that small businesses, I know that they need help, but don't know where to find it. And for example, for small businesses to work with agencies, they can't see the true value in it, because agencies can be quite expensive with their retainer fees that can be thousands a month, and content creation fees and so forth. And small businesses are not really geared to take full advantage of it, because they need to be very organized within their business. So that, the businesses that take full advantage of agencies are people that are not, or businesses that are not ready to hire their own digital marketing expert or marketing person, but they have, their systems in place, they plan ahead, they know what their campaigns are going to be, they're very conscious of, their capabilities, and then they can outsource a particular skill set to an agency where, the technical expertise is what they kind of, are leveraging. Small businesses just can't do that because they're not organized in most cases. They don't plan ahead. People wake up, on the 1st of December and go, oh my God, Christmas, I better do a social media post. And so if they I found in the past that they get frustrated with agencies, because agencies can't do much for them unless they provide content. And by the time they provide content, they might as well have done their posting themselves. So then they're like, why am I spending all this money? These people aren't helping me. So there's quite a different need of small business versus larger small businesses to medium businesses, that it's a need that's not being fulfilled by the agencies, but the small businesses really don't know how to find the right resources. And this is where I think there's a lot of opportunity for graduating students to work as freelancers and help these businesses. I often say to small businesses as well, is if you're hiring someone, again, don't just hire someone and give them, just say, do it for me, I don't care, I'm not involved. I encourage them to actually have that person in their business, at least for half a day a week, because again, unless they're organized to give you the content to post, they need someone to help create it. And unless you're working in their business, it's really hard for you to, create that valuable content that will see results. And then you'll find that the client is getting frustrated because they're not seeing results, and you're frustrated because they're not giving you anything to get these results with. So, we'll cover again working with clients a bit later, but fundamentally, if freelancing is something you want to do, I recommend as part of what you offer them, you spend half a day a week at least in their business, so you can learn what their specials are, what their products are, how they work, what they'd like to promote. You can take products home to take photos, whatever it might be. So we'll look at employment first. So fundamentally, employers are looking for professional experience, right? So even if they know that they're hiring graduates, the more experience that you have on your resume, the better, right? Because at the end of the day, even if it's a grad role, they understand that everybody's coming out of university with, these similar skills that you've just done through your courses. You might have had a casual job that might not have direct experience, direct relevance to the job you're applying for now. So,
one of those experiences and unrelated jobs is if you're going in for a graphic design or content creative, then working in a cafe doesn't directly relate to that business. So you need to try and find jobs that are going to be related back to the career path or the business that you want to get into.
Precisely, exactly. And so when employers, even if they know that they're hiring entry-level people, they will still, if you're in a pool of people and someone's done one internship over the others that worked at a cafe, that's the person that's going to get through, because they want to leverage that knowledge. And the next point is they don't want to spend time teaching. That, the less time they spend teaching you, the more value you bring to the business. So you almost want to position yourself like you can hit the ground running, like you've got the experience, you know how to work with a client, you know how to design, you know how to implement, that type of stuff. I kind of also say, even if you see a job ad and you can do half the stuff and not the other half, you should still apply and highlight all the things that you can do, as long as you know that you can quickly learn and upskill yourself on all the other bits. So for example, if it's a social media marketing role and a search engine optimization, for example, and you've done social media marketing and you're confident, but you literally haven't, you know it in theory but haven't learned, that you can pretty much spend a week reading everything you can, doing webinars, short courses, whatever it might be, and upskill yourself. So don't focus on what you can't do, focus on what you can do, and just make it look like, and even if you have to upskill yourself at night when you go home, as long as your employer doesn't have to pay for your time to figure it out, that's what you're trying to do. So even if you can't do something or you haven't learned it, make it out like, that's fine. I know how to learn it, and I'm going to, I'll be an expert within a couple of weeks, not on your time, that type of thing. So again, that gives them confidence that they're not going to be wasting their money with you. So employers want to see a return on their investment as soon as possible, right? So they're paying you a wage. So essentially think of yourself as you need to earn your keep. So depending on the role, so sometimes it's an expense, sometimes it's an income generation. Obviously, if it's an income generation, then you need to be earning more income for the business than you are worth to them. That's, how you keep that job. If it's an expense like graphic design or whatever, obviously, it's a different sort of value model. It's, saving time for the owner to have to do it, or, say them doing it in-house saves, graphic design cost of getting a professional to do it, whatever it might be. But you're trying to show how valuable you are and that the value is realized immediately. That's
And as far as graphic design and SEO nowadays, but especially with graphic design, with all of these apps that are available, what we've found is in the graphic design industry is they think that if they get Canva or they get some other sort of app, that all of a sudden they've become graphic designers. So if you're going to come across as a graphic designer, make sure that you know the subject well and you've done a lot of the learning around it.
Otherwise, you're a content creator. So, and
Yeah.
that's fine, but you're not, the technicality of Illustrator or whatever. That's
Yeah.
what you expect from a graphic designer. So that's really important to remember when applying for jobs. So you're demonstrating your value. They don't care about your work in a cafe unless your job is client facing and you want to illustrate how you've worked for 15 years since you were 15 years old, whatever, in client facing role. So the actual, or McDonald's, it's not about the role in McDonald's. It's about what you got away from it, like self-management, that type of stuff. Now, the next point is don't scattergun with applications. So when I worked in HR, I saw when people were just, oh, there's a job, I'm going to send a resume. Oh, there's a job, I'm going to send a resume. And you can really tell the people that actually looked at the job and said, I want this job and I'm going to align my application with it. And the people that are just, it's a numbers game for them and they just like, all standard resume, standard application letter that basically doesn't align. That just doesn't work. You're wasting your time, really. Like I don't think there's ever been a case that I've seen someone that's clearly scattergunning that gets progressed, because it's just, it doesn't work like that. So this is where I say less is more. So identify, the jobs you really want and really spend the time to get your application right. And again, you might win some, you lose some, but fundamentally addressing the application criteria, I think the cover letter is fundamentally more.
Oh, absolutely more. It's so important. Just don't use a standard cover letter.
Yeah, exactly. It's align it with what, and don't also then, have a sort of, a nice cover letter that then you just replace the company name. Write, at least 1 or 2 paragraphs in the cover letter should be aligned precisely to what either the job is asking for or the company goals,
And one other tip that I'll add there is that if you know the business who is looking for an employee, I would be researching that business to begin with, so that when you are doing that covering letter, that you are addressing the needs of that business and that they can see that you've actually done your research, that you know a little bit about them.
Exactly. And just the last point here in relation to that is don't waffle. So some people feel like waffling, like my extensive experience and working with clients, means that like all those kind of very generic words are also useless. So, because you can say that for anything. So you need to be a little bit more specific about, again, for what the criteria is. Like in my role as an intern at SBMS, I developed, client-facing relationships, maybe not, don't quote me exactly, but that type of approach, in that you're not just like loosely quoting your extensive experience or how your reliability and, work ethic is excellent, because that's not, anyone can say that, right? You need to be a bit more specific. So don't waffle, be to the point, but align it with the criteria and the organization. That's, I think, is really important. So if you don't get through, it's important to say that it's not you. It's basically, you could be one of the best applicants, but they could have 3 of the best applicants, right? And they just pick the one that feels right for them at the time. And I know I've been offended when I didn't get through, it hurts, but when we rejected people in my role in HR, it wasn't anything specifically to do with that person. It was everything to do with the person we picked, right? So keep that in mind. So as long as you've checked your resume, you've had your resume checked, and as long as you've had like you've had help writing your cover letter and you're confident that your applications are really good, then don't take it personally. And have that reviewed, because sometimes even, for our internship positions, or even when I was in HR, whatever, any other jobs, I'm still shocked at how crappy some applications are. You think you're looking for a job and there's advice, like you can pay for advice, you can get free advice, you can just Google how to write a good cover letter or like a resume. There's templates abundance available, and still some of them come in that are just so slapdash and shocking, and it's not hard, but it's sometimes you assume that people understand and they don't. So and the other one to remember is also, it's not on my notes, but I just thought of it. When you use those graphically designed resume templates, I know that especially for large organizations and recruiters, they use software to scan the resumes for the information they're looking for. And if your template is too far from sort of the standardization that they use, the information is going to get lost. So maybe have some research, because I'm not too familiar with the software and how it works, but investigate it and make sure, even if you want to do a pretty cover letter because you're a designer, make sure that the information flow and the headings are generally aligned to like a standard template that this software would be picking up from. And the next point was internships. So obviously you're doing a good job in interning and getting professional experience through our programs. That's wonderful. So now your experience again dictates the direction that you're going to go down, right? So if you're finding that it's good to get skills with everything, like obviously if you work with a QVM trader, it's great, the knowledge is valuable and you can translate into a value for your future employer. However, if you work for a greengrocer, but you need to get, your ideal job is to work for a financial services company, then there's a big misalignment with the experience to where you're going, right? So all experience is great, but you need to firstly be clear on where you want to go so you can focus on getting internships in that area. But even if you're getting internships in another area, you can use that to describe your experience without listing your exactly the organization. So kind of position it that you, for example, if you did a greengrocer and a, I don't know, crafts at QVM, but you want to be in financial services, you could say, on your resume, various internships, supporting small businesses to achieve these outcomes, right? So you're not specifically listing the organizations you did it for unless it's relevant, because that's going to detract from your application, right? They're going to be looking for experience that's precisely relevant to that. So if there's a company you dream of, what other organizations could you work for or intern for that make you more appealing to that company? So for example, if you're into fashion and you want to work, your goal is for Sass & Bide or one of the big fashion companies, working for like Brotherhood of St. Lawrence, unfortunately, is in the shop is not going to position you in the good stead for such a job, right? Even though the experience might be great and you could draw on it and benefit, and they could benefit from it, but that's not what they're going to be looking for. So you need to kind of identify, well, maybe working for Maya will be more appealing to Sass & Bide than, Brotherhood of St. Lawrence, even though it's noble and whatever. So just you get all the experience that you can get, just be conscious of how you present it. Like I always, I had many interns in my fashion retail store and marketing business, and often they were from overseas and they were doing international business, and sometimes I had to get them to steam garments, for example, not a sexy placement by any means. But I always said to them, nobody has to know that you were here steaming garments. You could position it to say you were merchandising designer apparel, which is so true, but it sounds so much better, than steaming. And fundamentally you're steaming, but you are also merchandising designer apparel for a retail boutique and marketing agency. So just being conscious of your wording to fluff up, smoke and mirror your experience to align with where you actually want to go, even if you haven't had that experience. So that leads me on to the next point. Do not list all the jobs you've ever done unless you can draw a relevant link to the job you're applying for. So again, content creation and you've only ever worked at McDonald's. Well, you can list it. If it's been 5 years at McDonald's and you're an assistant manager, that's probably good to note. But also, again, how does that experience, facilitate you to be a better employee for this organization? That's what you're highlighting, not all the experience that you've had. Also, if you've had really short-term experiences, it doesn't look good. So like if you were in a job for a month, don't list it unless, again, you can draw some sort of relevance for the job you're applying for into it. And basically summarize your responsibilities and then your job to align with what your employer is looking for. So that's key. Otherwise, again, it's waffle. They skip, put it this way, the recruiter or whoever's looking at resumes is looking for, maybe spends 10 seconds if you're lucky on your application, right? So they're going to scan the resume, the application letter, looking for keywords, right? So highlighting keywords is good of what they're looking for. And then they're going to scan your resume to see where you've worked, where you've studied, and roughly how long you've stayed in each job for. That's it. So no need to write a thesis, just really clear and concise to, again, align with what they're looking for. Madalen, anything to add to employment?
No, I think you're pretty right there.
Yeah. So freelance, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of opportunity to work with small business. People just can't get enough. I'm constantly being asked, where can I find people like this? I need help. One thing that I find with students is that they lack confidence to sell themselves as freelancers, because they haven't, they sort of feel like they haven't worked or they haven't developed their skills or whatever. Fundamentally, especially when in many small business contexts, you are the expert already. You're way more advanced than they ever will be. And we'll cover a little bit of more pricing later, but fundamentally, you're also wanting to get some experience, and there's going to be a test and measure approach for you. But you can, if you don't feel comfortable charging, a certain amount, then charge how much you feel comfortable. So even if it's $15 an hour, to someone else it's going to be a bargain while you learn to implement your skills for their business. And then as you get more confident, you can increase your price. So don't let your lack of professional experience or stop you from offering your skills that you have and you've learned to someone that needs them but might not be able to afford them in a more experienced professional sense. So you're actually doing someone a favor and they're doing you a favor, right?
And in fact, right now is a really good, there's good evidence of that because of COVID and businesses not having the money. They would grab the opportunity of having people help them develop their business with content at a competitive price.
Exactly, that's right. But they don't know where to find it. So you may have to come door knocking. So this is where I say you can, you just need to identify the businesses where you can think you can offer the most value to, right? So obviously you might have worked with a grocer at QVM or whatever, and you're like, no, that's not for me. Even though you might be able to help grocers because you've done it, and it might be, I always say, what's the lowest hanging fruit? Everything is an opportunity, but you kind of, while you're looking for work, you want to grab what's available, right? Even if it's, again, not maybe leading you in a direction that you potentially want to, but you can get more experience leveraging the experience that you've had. But at the same time, you need to identify who would be your ideal client and work on approaching similar businesses, that business, offering your services for free to prove your value, that type of thing.
So, and in that regard, just to expand on that, as far as small business is concerned, you might even have a look at niche businesses, like it might be in the health industry, but it might be chiropractors or podiatrists, or it might be real estate agents, or, you know, so look at where, if you position yourself as being an expert in a particular field, whether it's travel, it could be travel industry, but if you can create that that niche client, you'll get a lot of word of mouth referrals. Exactly. As someone who's already done it for this business, who's in that industry, and they'll refer you on to others.
Exactly. And just with pitching, I would recommend, actually, because of small business, a big fear is pricing.
Yeah.
So, you know, and there's two ways. You can initially pitch and just say, are you interested, and then talk to them and then quote them. But in small business context, especially like when you are door knocking, they're going to be like, this is all great, but how much is it? And that's the first thing. And your point of difference at this point in time is your price, because it's going to be lower than, established businesses fundamentally. So I would almost be approaching with, for only $100 a week, we can achieve this and this and this, that type of pitch. And then you can obviously change the pitch as you progress. But just to get your foot in the door, I think with small business especially, that forward pricing is important, because that would be a big fear for them, especially with COVID and the restrictions and whatever. But probably at this time, I would probably recommend looking for businesses that probably haven't suffered so much, you know, online businesses, or, like actual healthcare providers, like, you know, physiotherapy, whatever. Like, yes, they've suffered because they've been restricted, but they're not going to be permanently affected, like some fashion retailers, for example. The good thing with freelancing is that you can actually do it while you're still looking for work. So just because you might go, okay, well, I'll freelance, you can still, you know, apply and keep an eye for jobs that you want. So they're not desperate. Like I often think, you know, jobs come when you're not looking for them, right? So when you're desperate, you're like, I've graduated and I can't find a job and I'm just, anything will do. Like that desperation sort of is not the right energy, firstly, and then you might go down a path that you actually end up hating. So you know, there's ideology and there's commercial reality. So yes, you can aim for butterflies, you know, whatever, like rainbows and butterflies, and that's good too. Like, so you need to find a balance, because obviously sitting there freelancing for $15 an hour while you're trying to find your perfect, you know, golden job is not ideal either. But at the same time, getting the first available thing that just for the sake of a job is also not a good thing. So freelancing and having some clients on the side will enable you to be more discretionary with your applications.
And I'm just going to mention here, and this is in one of the mentees I have. I've been mentoring her for a number of years now. So she wanted to get into, she was in graphic design, wanted to get into web design, and basically she didn't know how to start, so we went through that and the pricing. She started off and she picked her niche and her demographics and geography. So she looked at that, and then she developed it so that she got her foot in the door, and she was charging $35 an hour for web development, right? But now she charges $90 an hour.
Exactly.
And she gets a lot of referrals. And
yes.
She has picked her niche as the small business owner, but she's also looked at the small business owner who has 0 to 10 staff. Yeah. So she's sort of niched it that way as well.
Yeah, exactly. So and that's a perfect example. So as you start, you're basically just, you want the experience, and you want just something to do, and you want to learn on the job. So you offer, a cheaper price, and then they might be like, oh, I'm using this girl and she's awesome, or guy. And then another business will be like, oh, give me their details because like I need this, right? And then you might be like, okay, well, this one I'll just try $20 an hour and see if I get away with it, And then you slowly, you'll get more and more and more and more, and you can just slightly increase your price. And the more confident you are with your skills, the more certain you are that you can provide that return on the investment that they're looking for. So, so that's sort of how pricing would work in that context. And, if you're then growing and you're finding that you're getting so many clients, for example, so you could then start hiring others to help you. So rather than charging $25 an hour and you've got a client getting you to quote, and you can charge them $50 an hour and hire someone for $25 an hour, and then you get $25 an hour to supervise them and find more clients, right? So that's sort of how it grows. But initially, you just obviously price your hourly rate to what you feel comfortable with. The other thing with the comment with pricing I was going to make is, oh, I've lost my train of thought. Apologies, but we'll probably come back. So one other comment I wanted to make here is to offer to work for a specific time frame to prove yourself. So if it's your ideal client and they're not really interested in hiring you or can't afford you, but you're sure you can deliver value for them, then you can offer to work for them for free, say for a month, to then measure the success, and then you can then justify your fee because you can continue to return that value, right? Or, for example, if it is a paid agreement, then I would probably recommend like a 3-month agreement where, it gives you the opportunity to prove yourself to them, but also that they're the right client for you, because some clients, your skills just might not be the right fit for. And a 3-month time frame then enables everybody to be on the same page of how it's going to work and when it will end and how, rather than sort of ending it because both of you are not happy. You've got kind of hurdles and goalposts to achieve without then having that awkward conversation if it's not working. And when I've been obviously consulting and freelancing, and I tell clients, this is what I believe will work for you. If it doesn't, I can understand, and I want I want the right outcome for you. So I might not be the right person, but until we try, I can't predict it, right? So then you're transparent that you're not promising the world. You're going to try. Oh, I remembered my other point about pricing. If you're going to do a service that you don't know much about, so again, like if you're a content creator, but you're going to have to do SEO and you're going to learn, or you're going to have to click around and figure it out, my recommendation would be not to charge an hourly rate for it, but to charge a project rate, because then the client isn't paying for you to learn, right? So at least say if you charge them 100, like they're giving you, a new website platform that you've never used before, and you're like, God, I'm going to have to figure it out, right? Obviously, for you to figure it, like they shouldn't pay for you to figure it out, but you want some return for you learning it. So if you say, okay, I'll do your website updates for $200, and it might take you like 20 hours or whatever to figure it out, but at least it's a flat rate. So then you're not giving them the bill at the end of the month and they're like, oh my God, we got nothing out of all this money while you learned. So just set packages. If you're not sure how long it's going to take you, or you're going to have to upskill yourself, then set pricing, otherwise hourly rate. So like I mentioned earlier, with small business, you are the expert and more of an expert than they'll ever be. So act like an expert. Don't be shy. Yes, you've just graduated and done maybe a couple of internships, and credit to you for bothering to do internships. That's putting you in good stead foundation wise to succeed. But don't be shy, especially if you're listening to this, or we've invited you to this session, it's because we believe that you've got capability to be a freelancer. So be confident around it. Obviously, you're going to have to, if you're freelancing, you're going to have to continuously upskill yourself. So make sure you're learning understanding trends, understanding what, you know, whether it's digital marketing or design or whatever, so that you can offer that to your clients. Because often, again, you're the expert, they don't know. You need to tell them.
And you know, to again, I'm still learning. I still put aside a block of hours every week to sit in webinars, to teach myself new skills. And this is a continuous program. So it's not going to be something that you're going to do now until you get the job or until you're freelancing. It's a continuous process. And if you're doing web design and SEO and graphic design and whatever else, then you're going to have to continue to upgrade those skills in every one of those areas, not just in the one area.
Exactly. So then another good way to find more clients is to talk about what you do, right? So I found that I've pretty much in my consulting business have never really had to prospect for clients like door knock saying, here's my proposal, you need me. Like pretty much all my work comes to me through word of mouth.
And that's the same with me. And that's what happens when you put yourself across as an expert and you're confident in your abilities, and then that comes to you. I've never advertised.
No, I hate, like if I had to pitch myself and sell myself, I couldn't do that. I just don't like doing it, right? So, but then I'll meet someone randomly and they'll be like, so what do you do? And I'm like, well, I do this and this and that. And they're like, oh my God, I've been needing a person like this. Can you help me? Or they'll be like, or someone will be like, oh my God, I've got a friend that you need to speak to them. Please speak to them. They really need you, right? And like, literally just because I talk about what I do, you know, and sometimes I do lots of things and I say, well, I actually do lots of things. And this is many things that I do. And they're like, oh, that's such a great skill set, blah, 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 blah. Right. So talk about it. And if your immediate network talking about it, why I achieved outcomes, then do networking. Obviously right now, networking is not, networking events is not really happening, but obviously it will soon. And, you know, join business professional networks and then you just stand around and talk about what you do. And then people are like, oh, I need this. Oh, you know, that whole conversation. You know, the website Meetup, they're awesome because you can identify groups, you know, Young Entrepreneurs Association and all that type of stuff, right?
And you can join all them on Facebook.
Exactly, right? And
search out the network groups.
And then you can join professional groups and then you can be like, hi guys, I'm a freelancer. You know, if you need any help with whatever I do, please let me know. Like I even saw great marketing like randomly on Facebook group. This guy said, hey, you know, and it was like Port Melbourne focus, which is I live in Port Melbourne. So it's a local group. So nothing like drastic. But this guy posted saying, oh, I know everyone's doing it tough and I really want to help with you businesses with their search engine optimization. So reach out to me if you need any help. I can help for free, right? And then what it did, oh, I'm happy to pay. I really needed someone. Oh my God, I'm so glad you posted this. I needed the help. I just didn't know where to start finding. I'd pay you ongoing. Like, so he offered his service for free on a group and got inundated with like all these opportunities to help businesses, right? So you could do this right now. I actually often post, there's a group called Like-Minded Bitches Drinking Wine, which is like 10,000 women talking about business. But fundamentally, if I have a student or a freelancer that's really helped me and they're looking for more work, I'll just post on it and say, hey, if anyone's looking for a freelancer and this and this and that, let me know. I'll send you the details. I know an awesome person. So it's not indirect and it's not like here, you must need to use my services or whatever. You can get your client to just share that they like your service and you get work. So that's a really easy way to get work. And have your online portfolio, but with that, you know, you can just use Wix or whatever you want to use, but it's important to, again, if you want to work with, you know, tech startups, for example, and you've just done a greengrocer at SBMS, don't put the greengrocer on your portfolio. Keep it aligned with the client base that you want to have. And then if you end up speaking to a greengrocer that needs help, then you can send them directly an example of your work that you did for the other greengrocer, right? But your online presence has to align with what you see your business needing to be. or your whatever, your brand. So warning, this is the pitfall. So employers do not like to employ people with their own businesses or that have had freelancing careers unless they're looking for freelancers. That's really important to know. So if you are interested in employment but they're freelancing as a side gig, or you're not sure which way you'll go, you can still freelance, but position everything that you do about freelancing that it's not that obvious that you're actually a freelancer. So for example, you can start a business called, rather than, my name agency, you would go like Digital Minds, and that's your business name, because then if, say, you're applying for an account executive role, then you would say you were an account executive at Digital Minds. Or if you are applying for, I don't know, a graphic design role, then you were a graphic designer at Digital Minds. And then your referees would be still your clients and your past mentors or whatever is relevant, but you are not saying, yeah, I've been freelancing for 6 months, because freelancer has like a good connotation in the right context, when people are looking for a freelancer. But for an employer, freelancing means that you couldn't get a full permanent job and just scattered around trying to get other work, right? So that's not, and it's not to say that, like, they're not right in that perspective. But I found for myself, when I had a business and then I closed it, and I just wanted to get a job just to recuperate from the financial challenges of having my own business at the time. And I couldn't get work because they saw that I was self-employed for so long. So just keep that in mind. You just always kind of camouflage the fact that it's your own business, in case you need to, not make it look like your own business later down the track. If you're obviously totally driven and your life's goal is to have your own business, fine, do whatever you want. But if you're freelancing while you're trying to figure out your life's path, kind of, make sure you're not obviously a freelancer or own your own business, because it's a threat to potential employers. So the other thing with freelancing is you can partner with other freelancers, like, students that you meet or your fellow graduates, or if you know a web designer and you're a content creator, to create a group. And that way you can refer to each other and you can offer complete solutions to people. So if you don't want to do website design and you're a graphic designer, but you don't want to then go to a client and they're like, but can you update your website? And you're like, oh, no, sorry, we'll have to find someone else. Like, you already have your group of...
The other way around that as well is you bring in another freelancer, but they actually freelance to you. So, you don't pass that freelancer onto the business. So that you lose the whole job. So, you might get a developer to do the coding. You might get a web designer, but then, you might need the SEO and get someone else to do the SEO for you. So that you should be getting a reduced rate for them to be freelancing for you, so that you actually make a profit.
How much they are, and then you add
that's right.
a margin on top of that for you to coordinate the whole project.
Exactly.
So you can either you can do as like a cooperative group, or you could be your own business with freelancers of your own that you go to, which that's how you grow your own consultancy in a way,
It is.
So again, pricing, charge at a rate they're comfortable with. So yes, don't let the fact that you don't think you've got enough experience stop you from freelancing. You've got enough experience that people will pay for at appropriate rate. So even if it, like I said, $15 an hour, 20, I recommend 25 is probably a very fair rate comparatively to what you would get at the entry-level job, and it's cheap still for small businesses. But again, if you think that you're not even comfortable charging that, charge whatever you're comfortable. And then the situation of demand and supply occurs. So you'll find that, again, word of mouth, you're networking, you're all of a sudden getting all these clients, and then you get more clients because you're not looking for work, because it just happens that they come. And then you can kind of go, well, I really don't have time for this client, but I'm just going to quote them $60 an hour, and if they take it, they take it. And the chances are they probably will, right? And that's how, like, I'm basically at the moment at $150 an hour just because I just quoted that, and that just, but yeah, they were like, okay, cool. So, and again, I wouldn't quote 150 to everybody that I work with, but I felt that in this case I could, and I got away with it. So you just, as it grows, and then you might have to hire someone, so then you obviously have to quote their wage in and your management time and so forth. So don't stress that you're under quoting yourself too much initially. So when you set up your own business, you can set up as a company or a sole trader. There's obviously costs associated with setting up a company. If you are adamant that you want your own business, then I'd probably, and you've got the money to set it up, which is like roughly $700, I would probably say it's easier and better in the long run if you set it up as a company from the beginning. But a sole trader is fine. So you can actually register yourself as a sole trader with an ABN and register a trading name like Digital Minds or whatever it would be, agency, which then basically you trade under, not using your own name. So, speak to your accountant if you're going to go down freelancing path, so you're doing it correctly. It's not our job to sort of guide you through that, but I operate as a company for all my consulting.
And I operate as a sole trader.
Yeah.
And have been all my business life.
Yeah. So, and again, it's from there's variance in tax perspective and things like that. But again, probably as a sole trader, and I could probably just as easily be a sole trader, but because I started as a company, I'm just now as continuing as a company, and I'm enjoying some tax benefits associated with that. So, so that's that. And as a freelance, obviously, then you can offer your services as to other agencies. So you can identify some of the big digital agencies and say, hey, I'm a freelancer available on demand work. And then you might find that they love you so much that they keep you on as a permanent contractor, right? Or you permanent employee. Generally, creatives get kept on as contractors, not employees, and more like account managers and that type of roles. Account executives would be more employed. But I would then recommend using your own name as a sole trader for that. You probably don't want them to see that you are an agency, because they would not like that in case you start stealing clients. So keep in mind that if you're freelancing for agencies, you're doing it as an individual on your own name. And if you're working with clients, you probably, unless it's easy to just use your own name and the people, but otherwise you probably want to create a brand around it.
Yeah, and I actually do get freelancers working for me from time to time, and that is a tricky area because there's always that thought that we don't want them to approach the business that we're working with after the event. So you've got to be careful of that.
Exactly. So again, just you can trade as your own name, you can trade as an agency, and just think about what it is that they want, and kind of align yourself to suit that. And then you can also earn extra cash as a freelancer on the side, even if you do get a job, right? So you've got some small business clients that you now go and get after this presentation and work for a few months, and then all of a sudden you've got a job. Well, it's not a big deal for you to spend 3 hours a week on the weekend or at night for doing their social media marketing or whatever they need you to do. So that's an extra point of cash generation. So don't, again, feel like if you choose this path, that's the path, unless you want to own your own business, So, but, there's many benefits from enjoy. And, there might be perfect jobs for you at the moment that are only part-time because... again, people just don't have the budgets maybe. So you could get a part-time job and freelance part-time until you're in the position to get a full-time job. And so the last thing to finish off is we've got links here. So there's many ways to advertise yourself online for freelance work. This one is Crowdshare is a new one. It's about to be launched. And they basically are going to be, it's an Australian company, which is great. And they're connecting small businesses with freelancers, which is perfect. I think it will be a great success. So worth signing up for that if you're interested. I think they're taking like initial you know, registrations, and I hope it works as well as I think it will, because I think it's got the potential. So Airtasker is actually really good. You know, it's for all services, and I know a number of people that got their freelancers from Airtasker. You can list your own, but also keep an eye on people posting jobs and call outs. Freelancer.com is another one, and Fiverr. Now Fiverr, you don't get paid very much, but it's kind of good to get experience. Like, yeah, I often use Fiverr, but that's because I want someone to do something for me for literally $5. So you probably don't want that.
But you've also found, you know, particularly over the last 12 months, they've brought in new rules where you can, in fact, do higher paying jobs. And they do interview. Once you reach a certain level, you actually get interviewed and they put you on as a premium supplier, and you can charge $1,000 for things. So there are different levels. So, yeah, but I agree with you. This is a good place to start to get the experience.
You couldn't, yeah, you are allowed to charge some higher. Exactly, you're right. And yeah, so that's good. And but for local, if Fiverr is international, a local is probably more Airtasker and Crowdshare, which will be. Now, for graphic designers, Design Crowd is good to get some practice. It's like 99 Designs, where it's a competition and people put up basically jobs, you know, briefs, and you can create logos for them, and if they like yours, you get the money. So it's kind of like a competition, but if you want to churn out some design to a brief, this is a good opportunity. And then have a Google, but this is a good article about all the freelancer websites available. And website designers, I've actually went to Upwork for website people before. And also you can become an official partner, professional partner of whatever web building platform you specialize in. And they then will refer clients to you. So that's a good way to kind of, again, build your freelance network and so forth. So that's it for now. Do we have any questions?
I just want to add one more, particularly for copywriting. iWriter.com is also a good site.
Okay, good to know. Yeah. Maybe we'll update these slides and send them to the guys.
Yep.
Some of the things that we think of. All right. Well, Elisa, Josh, or anyone questions?
I don't have any questions. That was really interesting. I learned a lot, definitely, with like the freelancing. I didn't really consider that, so definitely really interesting. Thank you.
Oh, there's also that the RMIT site, Katya.
Add that. Oh, sorry. Yeah, definitely. RMIT site is good. They're doing similar sort of matching small business for hourly rates of, what was it called?
I'm just trying to find the link.
Would that be Volley?
No.
Okay, I think Volley's another one as well. That is a volunteer-based one, but I think that can then lead on to things.
Oh, there we are. RMITondemand.com.
Exactly. So RMIT On Demand. And I think there's I need helpers, and there's a few, but you can find them. But to be honest, I think networking is probably
networking's the best.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't only get you talking to people now, but if you've got a business card, and you should never go to a networking group without business cards, but if you pass it on, I've had calls 5 years later. Oh, I remember you do this, and networking is the number one way to get referrals.
100%. Honestly, and they meet you in person, and they get the vibe. And then you're not one of many fighting on price, compete on price to get the job. You know what I mean? You actually have a personal connection. So, but obviously list yourself for the experience if that's the path you're going down on, and you never know what will bring. But as soon as you can physically network, and I think some of the networking groups are actually doing online networking at the moment.
They are.
They'll join in, But unfortunately, I'm about to actually run out of battery and I don't know where my charger is. So I think with that, we are going to close this session. But thank you for joining us. And obviously, one thing I did forget to mention, which is important, if you are going to go down the freelancer path or want to study your own business mentors help you set up right from the start. And I'm not saying it just to, drum up our own business. Like, honestly, it will help you give it a good, be positioned in the best possible way to where you need to go with it. All right?
Okay, guys. Thanks very much for coming along.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much,
Bye.
guys.
Bye.
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 All right.